Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have Joe Templin on the show. Welcome to the Wolff Den. How's it going?
Matt, today has actually been a pretty awesome day.
Oh, that's what
It's
we
just getting better because I'm talking to you. So,
that's what we like to hear. I posted yesterday and I posted yesterday how are you doing? It's like we asked that question. The person asking it generally doesn't want to hear the answer to it, right? It's just a pleasantry. And so when someone asks me how I'm doing, I tell them how I'm doing. And it's great to hear that you're having a great day. But if you weren't having a great day, I'd like to hear about that too. And, I think it's good to tell people what's on your mind. Maybe not
oh,
everything
I've
that's
been
on
I've
your
been
mind.
struggling. I'm not gonna lie. I
Yeah.
mean, I actually burned a quick video earlier today about in the struggle is your strength because the past couple of months have not been easy. I mean, it felt like every single day was going into the ring with Mike Tyson's sparring partners again because I was just getting hit from all angles and had to keep fighting without realizing that I was knocked out. But kept going, and I'm not dead, so I can fight another day. But today has actually had a couple of rewards around it, and in the moment. I'm here with you, and so I am going to enjoy every second of this conversation.
I love to hear it. This is we're gonna. I'm not great with the media stuff, but this is a good song for you right now. You know the song?
Yep. I get knocked down, I get back up again. I drink a whiskey drink, I drink a lager drink, I drink a cider drink. That's funny because Danny is my oldest child's name. And so I used to play Danny Boy so much that he got offended by it.
But that's a great song, though. We get knocked down, but we get up again, and that's life, right? I mean, if who
It
hasn't?
is.
Mike Tyson got knocked down.
So side bar real quick. When I was training for my black belt years and years ago, one of the guys who trained in one of the local gyms was one of Mike Tyson's sparring partners because this was down in Catskill, New York area. And so I ended up fighting this guy for 3 rounds. He was 6'4", 230 pounds, flaming red-headed Irishman, left-handed on top of it. Here I am, I'm about 5'11", 100 and maybe 55 pounds at that point. I threw a spin back kick. This guy ducked underneath it, came on up, bam, hit me so hard I went flying into the wall. I was out on my feet and I came off the wall just like all hands and feet going. I was out, and yet I didn't know, and I didn't stop fighting. So that's a good synopsis of my life right there.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you're in battle, and I said this the other day because it's weird. What the heck was his name? The guy, Kellen Winslow Jr. when he talked about being on the football field was like war, and
Mhm.
people took offense to it because there are people fighting actual wars and losing lives and stuff. So it's not comparing it to that, but it's life is a battle. We're all battling different things. Some of us are battling the same things, and we just need to get back up and keep going. And we're gonna lose some, we're gonna win some. It's and again, if we talk about Tyson, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face,
Absolutely.
right?
One of my favorite quotes from him.
Yeah,
And,
great quote
we
there.
all fighting, but as long as it's not fatal, it's fixable.
Yeah,
I'm not dead. I can get back up and can keep fighting. And so that is an attitude that was instilled in me early on. And so it is one of the reasons why I have been able to get through COVID, to, lose businesses, to recover from injuries, to be able to be, as one of my friends said, the most resilient human being he's ever met. You just keep going. I mean, because what's the alternative? Lay down and die? No, thank you.
yeah. Well, I mean, there's other alternatives other than lay down and die, but those aren't necessarily even better because they could, you're living and there might be worse scenarios, and you gotta live with them. Which so you want to make sure you don't make those choices. Now's probably a good time for you to give us a quick introduction of who you are. I know we already got into a little bit, but tell everyone who doesn't know just who you are, and then let's continue.
Oh, so I'm Joe Templin. I'm the author of the Amazon Kindle #1 new release in professional development, Everyday Excellence. My background is at 10 years old, I was legally dead from my asthma, came back from that. Started college at 13 because my parents said 12 was too young. I was an applied physicist. Then, because we lost the family farm, I went and became a financial advisor. Also became a martial artist along the way. Ended up picking up a world championship in there because of this financial planning and competitions. I started studying psychology, both performance psychology and sales psychology, and all this. Drifted into consulting, built my own consulting firm, started ultra running during COVID. As my friends on my running team, Road Hazards, say, let's do something crazy so we don't go insane. So, started doing ultra marathons, and that led me to during the pandemic, I had a flash of insight and I ended up writing Everyday Excellence. So, what I do is I am a human Swiss Army knife, if you want to know what I am, because of my eclectic background. I say eclectic as opposed to Renaissance man because I can't draw a straight line even with a ruler. But really, what I do, it's all about helping individuals and organizations achieve their goals to unlock their excellence so that they can have a positive impact in the world.
Is it fair to say that most people are maybe at the top of the list of why they're not successful? They can't get out of their own way.
Um, I don't say that it's well, yes and no. And, I always answer questions like that because as an optical physicist, light is both a particle and a wave. So I answer yes, no questions with an either or with a yes, typically.
Maybe.
But so people are their own problem, but it's because they don't know any better in a lot of ways. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the top is the self actualization. And people haven't been climbing up the pyramid the same way. We have it really easy in this country and in the first world for the most part. And it's gotten easier and easier over the decades. And so people have lost the fire in the belly, the vision, the desire for challenge and excellence. And so a lot of the times, people have gotten bad advice. So they don't know what they're capable of. They haven't been pushed, so they don't realize the strength that they have inside. They haven't had a model or a lighthouse to basically be the beacon to try and draw them out to be better than what they think they are. So people are just comfortable. And I've got a saying, convenience kills, because that's really what's happening is that everything is so easy now in so many ways that people are just comfortable, and comfort kills dreams in a lot of ways. So, how many people are out running marathons? How many people are getting up and hitting the weight room every day? How many people are cracking the books after they finish college? I saw a statistic from, I think it was Pew, that 1/4 of Americans, after they get their terminal degree, whether it's high school or college or what have you, don't read another book.
Hmm. I read
And
I read very little, and I I I would like to read more, but it's not a I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I think I'm a type of person who has to watch a movie all at once. So
mhm.
for me, if I can't read a book in like two sittings, maybe near each other, I lose interest in it.
Do you,
And
do you
maybe
consume do you consume information other ways though? Because,
yeah, of
for
course.
example, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. They go very well with ultra marathons, quite frankly. So I'll listen to an audiobook on my drive to the office. So it's 25 minutes each way.
Yeah.
That's 50-ish minutes a day. In a week, I can consume a short audiobook, or in 2 to 3 weeks, I can consume something more in depth.
Yeah, I don't drive anymore, and I try to listen to like podcasts and stuff as I'm working, and I can't do it. I
Okay. Some
sometimes I can
people
listen
aren't
to music.
auditory. I am. I
Yeah,
mean, I got ready for my first marathon while I was getting ready for the CFP exam by going to the gym, being there at 5 o'clock in the morning when they opened, running on the treadmill and listening to tax code on my headset.
yeah.
On my Walkman. That's how long ago that was.
Well, I wanted to ask you. I mean, I celebrated a birthday a couple weeks ago, and I'm not quite closer to 100 than zero, but I'm getting there. And you mentioned going to college at an early age. How close was that to Doogie Howser?
That was well before Doogie Howser, and that's probably a good thing, or else I'd be nicknamed Doogie forever. And it was a good thing that after I pledged my fraternity before Beavis and Butthead came out, because I would have been stuck with Beavis forever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fire, fire. Let's go.
I think we could look. Doogie would be a pretty. I mean, I think Neil Patrick Harris has proven he's a pretty cool dude. So there's nothing wrong with being.
Yeah, there are worse things in life than to be stuck with that one.
What is? I guess you don't. We always ask questions like this. You don't have any like what Do you like being a twin or? Because I'm a twin. Like I wouldn't know anything other than that. So it's like if I ask you, do you feel that you missed out on the college experience because you went so young? Do you have a feeling or appreciation for that?
Actually, I went and did another undergraduate. So I got the undergraduate experience the second time around at RPI when, I joined the fraternity and I was doing volleyball and taekwondo and student senate. And I actually looked at like the smorgasbord that college should be. And I completely consumed everything there and probably stuff that I shouldn't have.
Yeah, I,
So
I think for 90, I mean, statistics, 84% of all statistics are made up, and I'm about to make up one up right now. But like 90, whatever, something in the 90% of all people who go to college learn more outside of the books that they read. That's my
Oh,
opinion.
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I was a physicist. So, 25 years ago, no, actually more than that, geez. So, I mean, some of my research was helping to build the background of the entire US telecommunication system. And I remember I was telling the generals that, someday we'd be able to request movies over and send them to your home over these light pipes. And I remember I was taking one of my astrophysics classes, and we were learning about these charge coupling devices that basically use light knocks out a photon, an electron in the grid in the semiconductor, and then it uses uh, software to basically program it. That was the forerunner to the digital camera. And I told professors that within 20 years, people are going to be walking around with 5 megapixel cameras in their pocket, and these 100,000 megapixel things costs hundreds of thousands of dollars back then. They're like, no way.
Right.
So I saw this technology. So most of the stuff that I learned in physics, other than Newtonian physics, is been overturned, or there's new theories or all this stuff. So the most important thing about going to college is not learning facts and things like that. It is learning how to think, not what to think,
Right.
how to think, so that you can ask additional questions. And so that's why my background as a physicist prepped me for my future as a consultant in a lot of good ways, because physics and philosophy and poetry are all very similar. Add in psychology too. They're just trying to explain how the world works, and they do it by asking questions. So, in poetry, they tend to use a little bit nicer language than the mathematical elegance of physics, but it's all intended for the same thing. And so it's different ways to be able to ask questions about the world. And so if you can learn to ask good questions, you are going to come up with more relevant answers overall, and you will not be outdated.
Well, that's what we aim to do on the Wolf Den is to ask good questions and steer the conversation in a good and fun and informative way. Um, my mom was one of the first people I know to have a cell phone in her car, and it was
Was
one
it
of
the bag phone?
it was one of those huge things. It was attached to the car, and we were not to use that phone under any circumstances because the price was. You think gas is high? It was like what,
Yep.
five, six, $7 a minute just to use that cell phone. But it's crazy. You talk about technology. I was just had this conversation. It's something that amazes me. I'd like your opinion on it. Does it surprise you that we're not closer to the Jetsons and Back to the Future than we are with all the technology and all the stuff that we've invented? And I would feel like,
Well, post pandemic, we're actually much closer to the Jetsons than people realize. And the technology's been there, it just hasn't necessarily been widely adopted. So,
right,
for example, we're doing this on StreamYard. I've used Zoom for 5 years, maybe. So telecommuting has been part of what I've done. I built a national or international level client base pretty easily long, long ago. And so now it has evolved to the point, where Leroy's going like, ah, and the
yeah,
doctor's like looking at his mouth. We have that today. We
everything's
have
everything's
remote work.
accelerated like 5 to 10 years, real quick. It
Yeah,
had to,
because it was there, but people didn't want to use it. So, like for example, before the pandemic, Americans didn't like QR codes. QR codes have been around for decades, and in Japan and South Korea, they're much more. I don't want to say advanced, but the adoption rate on technology is so much higher there that people have been utilizing these technologies there forever, and it just took us a while to catch on up.
yeah, we have a partnership with a company called Ringpin who has customizable and programmable QR codes. It's kind of like Linktree on steroids,
Hmm.
which is, we had someone who had a design and they had 5 QR codes on the back of this thing. And I'm like, you can't have 5 QR codes on one page. It's first of all, it's going to hit. It doesn't. It looks
Yeah,
terrible. So and the QR code for me, I was at a restaurant. I had to go. There was a stand that had a QR code for the menu. I'm like, why not just put the menu there? I get it. You want to direct people. You want to get data. So I love QR codes. I think there's a very good application for them. I also think that there's people are lazy in using QR codes, and there's some.
and this is how almost everything is that technology makes things easy. And if it's taken too far to an extreme, it ends up no longer enabling, but harming. So, for example, when I was a kid, I used to race the cashiers in terms of adding up the cost of the groceries because it was just a cool game. I was mathematically advanced. It helps me, count cards later on in my life. But it's one of those things that you build up a skill set with it. And, the fact that people can't make change now
Yeah,
bothers me beyond belief. The fact that people need a calculator to do what we in engineering school called back of the envelope calculations. I can't tell you the number of business plans and, um, designs where we literally had a bar napkin and we drew something on out and it led to a multi-million-dollar company, or it made us realize, no, that's a bad idea. That will actually kill someone. Let's not do that. And so, because people haven't gotten used to doing these sort of things, they are dependent on the computer or their technology or something else, as opposed to having an intuitive feel as to if something is right or wrong, the order of magnitude that'll come out to be, and just being able to have a better grasp of the world.
yeah, it's good and bad. I mean, think about how many phone numbers you think the average person remembers.
I
I know,
remember
I
probably
know,
five.
I could probably maybe five. Maybe there's maybe 5 numbers I could recite to you off the top. Maybe 10 in my phone. I have hundreds.
Yeah. And, so what has replaced that in your brain, though?
Yeah. Uh, how many? Seinfeld trivia? I don't
Okay.
know.
Because Albert Einstein actually, when asked for his phone number, decades and decades ago, went and looked it up. And they're like, Herr Einstein, don't you know your own number? He's like, no, I don't need to know that because it is a fact that can be looked up.
Yeah.
And so there's those sort of things where we can just GTS, Google that stuff. Whereas my mom used to tell me when I was a kid, go look it up. And So that's one of the things that we always did is you go find out the answer. But it's the capacity to take these facts and these little bits of information that are presented and understand them, to be able to see the signal and the noise, essentially,
Well,
to understand what's going on. And that's part of the problem, I think, is that people aren't learning to ask questions and validate. They're just saying, oh, well, I saw it on the interwebs, it must be right.
one of my favorite things to do is send a "Let me Google that for you" link. It's a wonderful thing when you can get that out in a conversation. Um, yeah, I think people don't ask questions. They don't question things. But and then you go to the other side, they question too much. Like some things just that's it is, and I think we don't need to question it because now we're going down this rabbit hole in conspiracy theory type stuff, which there's a lot of that also, and sometimes you don't the line is blurred. We don't know what's what because of everything that's out there.
And part of that is because there's been a failing of faith with various institutions. You know, it used to be that you could, for the most part, trust the news. It was, for the most part, you could trust, your church or your synagogue or your mosque. You could trust your school.
You trust your
And
family members.
yeah, so now, because of the violation of trust among leadership in a lot of ways. And maybe this is just me being a Gen Xer, and questioning everything because of watching the shuttle explode. Um, you know, we no longer necessarily have the faith that what we're being told is true. And this is one of the things that I picked up working with some of my Intel buddies is that, you respect but don't trust,
Yeah,
and having that nice, you know, I will listen to you, but only to a certain point, and I'm going to verify, is that healthy balance that I think is lacking in a lot of ways, because people either just completely swallow what's told to them hook, line, and sinker, or they're going to doubt everything no matter what. And there's got to be a middle point.
yeah, somewhere in between. And the other thing that amazes me, the amount of people who are willing to lie about something that's so easily found out. Like it's crazy to me that like you're going to get found out.
Yeah.
It's not like an opinion. It's not something that's going to be really tough to prove.
Well,
It,
we've had a increase in narcissism and various other things. And Dr. John Stolk from the Netherlands was doing some research on this with me, because if you go back to the founding of the United States, we were 95% agrarian, and people rarely went more than 5 miles away from where they were born. So everybody knew everybody, and there was no hiding. You get to the Civil War, people were able to, with the railroads, go hundreds of miles away, and you could go to a new town and create a new identity. If somebody from your old town came there, they could find you out pretty easily and all that. Fast forward to the 1950s and 60s, we suddenly have radio and people can hear what's going on in other places. And so they're getting this influence. Then you get television. Then you get to the point where everybody can create their own online persona. They can create 4 dozen dating profiles, even if they're married. They can use Snapchat filters. So they can create these illusions out there and get what they're looking for in terms of feedback, in terms of literally getting the dopamine fix from this. And so, because there is a much lower pain, um, you know, pain threshold on, I mean, the penalties for this are very low by comparison to what they used to be. There's this disconnect. So people have more and more extreme behavior around it until, they play stupid games and then they win stupid prizes, and they do so in a major way.
that's a whole nother episode. I believe firmly that there is not enough deterrent for bad behavior, and that is for a whole lot of things. And so, but that speaks to what you're saying. Did you see? I don't know if you saw Nick's comment.
Yep.
Nick's a good supporter of the program. So trust but verify.
Exactly, because like in that situation as a submariner, if somebody says they did something, guess what? And they didn't, everybody dies. So that's an example of there are extreme consequences. And so you double and triple and quadruple check. And if people took that attitude with their business, with their families, with their personnel, with, almost everything, they would have a much higher standard. So this goes back to professional pride, which comes back to personal pride, not in the negative way, but you know what? Tell the truth and work hard, and you're going to be pretty much okay.
If there was someone who was in this world who's a public figure that was lying to us about who they are, who would shock you the most? I have a couple. There's a
It would shock me the most
one
because I've
living,
realized that
one
most
living,
public figures lie.
yeah,
Because
one.
when I was growing up, I was a big fan of like Bill Cosby. And then because of some health issues that I had, I was a fan of Lance Armstrong.
Yeah,
So, of course, there are major, major failures there. One who,
I have one dead and one alive who would be the biggest for me.
you know what? I don't know if they qualify as public figures because they're public and they're like leaders. It would be like somebody like Jocko Willink or Jordan Peterson, somebody who's you know built their success off of consistency and integrity in terms of what they're doing. And it seems that their work is a reflection of who they are at this point.
I mean, I kind of mean like maybe their personality as well. For me, it's Mr. Rogers um, and Tim Tebow. Those are the two that I always come back to.
Tebow, yeah, because on such a pedestal, he's so extreme about it. And some people want to knock him down for that
Yeah.
because, exceptionality in any way breeds contempt.
But it's we talk about my wife loves court TV, and we got Amber Heard and Johnny Depp on our, and these people are trying to interview actors, like award winning actors. I don't.
Okay, so
it's crazy.
they portray and confuse and tell stories for a living.
Yeah, they've actually convinced themselves of what is, and probably can beat lie detector tests by doing it. That's
Yeah.
how good of an actor they are.
And here's the thing, they're actors. Who cares?
Yeah. Well.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like, okay, so I'm a big pirate fan. I love pirates. If Johnny Depp does not play a pirate again, okay, it's not going to change my life. It's
Yeah.
not going to put any rum in my up. It's not going to put any gold in my treasure chest
Yeah.
either way. So why the hell do we care? You know
Well,
what I care more about? I care more about, talking about my book or making sure that my kids are getting to practice or, dealing with the people that I coach, making sure that they're doing the things that they're supposed to do to build their businesses or taking care of my health. This goes back to the Stoic dichotomy of control. If you can control it, control it. If you can't control it, don't care about it.
we have such little control over things, but then we also have so much control over things. It's a really weird phenomenon.
Yeah, you have control over what you put into your mouth, what you put into your mind.
And some people don't even have control. And we get a mental health discussion. They don't have
Yeah,
control.
they don't have control. So on those things, so they have to take control of what they can around that. But you know what? I can't control, what my kids are doing at school, so I can't worry about it that much.
Yeah.
I can't control what other humans are doing. I can't control what's happening in Washington or in the Ukraine, or if the sun decides to have, solar flares and, disrupt the electrical systems and stuff like that. Beyond my control. So I'm going to
Yeah, but
focus on doing what I can do.
you and I are similar in that I don't worry about a lot of things because I can't control, and there's nothing I could do about it until most of the time it's too late anyway.
Yeah.
But
And
that's
Mark
business.
Manson talks about this. You have a certain number of F's that you can allocate. And so the Karens in the grocery store who are screaming about stuff, it's because their F's are not valuable because they're not saving them for something important.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, that's interesting. I just posted something. I wanted to get something graded by PSA, a ticket, and I was a day late on the deadline. There's a whole reason why it's not important. I was a day late on the deadline, and I reached out to them to say, "Hey, can you honor the same price? Because their price went up double since." And they
Mhm.
said no. And I posted it on a online, and everyone was like calling me a Karen. I was like, I'm not telling you I'm entitled. I'm not telling you that they're wrong and I'm right. I'm just as a businessman saying, look, I made a mistake. I'm asking you to honor it. It's good business practice. I would honor it too if you came to me a day late if it wasn't affecting anyone else. So there are some real true Karens out there, and then there's like a rush to call everyone a Karen.
Exactly, because we want to judge other people
Yeah,
because we're not comfortable turning around and using that energy to judge ourselves.
yeah,
And that's part of the problem. I am my harshest critic, and I always will be. And a lot of my friends are like, dude, ease off on yourself. You can relax. You don't have to push yourself so hard. And, you know, I think it was Marcus Aurelius said, you know, judge yourself harshly and others lightly. Too often people are like judging everybody else because they don't want to take that focus and turn it inside and see what's not perfect or even good inside themselves and then do the hard effort of working on that.
yeah,
So this is one of the reasons why I'm a weirdo, as my friends say, is because I'm willing to do those difficult, those uncomfortable things constantly.
yeah. I think we need to be, harsh on ourselves, and just also have a very good view of who we are, good, bad, and otherwise. And I truly believe that I have a very good handle on my faults and my and the good stuff that I have. There's a song to this. You ever hear the suntan song, suntan lotion song, sunscreen song by Baz Luhrmann? It's
No,
just
I haven't. Who sings it?
if you just write this it's called the suntan song, the sunscreen song. It's just a ton of good advice in one song. And he's just sort of like saying it. It's
I
spoken
will look
word.
it up afterwards. So see, I learned something
Yeah.
today. I get a new experience. So thank you, Matt. This has been valuable to
It's
me.
even better.
And as you can see from my Irish German vampire skin, I need all the sunscreen that I can get. I need like SPF 5,000 to open up my sunroof.
I was talking before about us being able to not really worry about a lot of stuff, at the beginning of this, I said we kind of get in our own way where we worry about stuff. So what can people do to be successful as a company in business, in life, in sales, and that your book is going to help them? Like, what am I coming out of this book thinking?
So
One thing that you
everyday
could say, I read
excellence
this book,
is
and here's what I thought.
it's a multivitamin for life because we all have different parameters, different dimensions that are important to us. Our personal health, our physical health, our mental health, our occupation, our nutrition, our relationships. So we've got all these different parameters. And because we get so caught up in life, things start slipping and entropy occurs and we have the natural decay. So the book helps people to think about and focus and make better micro decisions and micro changes in their world. And as Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, said, well being is no small thing, but it's made up of small steps. And I just wrote an article that if you can get 1% better every single week, at the end of 2 years, you're about 3 times as good.
Yeah. Well, what is
If you
1%
spend
better mean?
1 hour a day working on something, at the
Yeah,
end of 3 years, you spent 1,000 hours. Okay, so as opposed to Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours for full
I say
mastery,
10,000
a
hours.
1,000 hours, you can achieve excellence in something. So if you can do this over multiple parameters or related areas and all that, over 3, 5, 10, 15 years, you're going to have this amazing nonlinear growth curve that I put on the front of the book. Okay, and that can be your excellence. So what everyday excellence does is it starts with a quote from somebody, whether it's Mahatma Gandhi or Kermit the Frog or Oprah Winfrey, that's got a discussion around that, going over a couple of different areas and giving some insight analysis around it. And that analysis is meant to be in a lot of ways like the Oracle of Delphi, in that the reader's going to take away what they need on that particular day from it. But the big thing is, if we just think about stuff but don't do anything, we don't get any change.
Yeah.
And so every day has an action item attached to it where we're actually doing something that changes us and our environment. So, like, one of my favorite action items is smile at 5 people today. And there's a lot of biochemistry and psychology around that. When you smile, it decreases the cortisol in your system. Okay, cortisol is the stress hormone, and so it reduces inflammation and actually slows down the aging process. When you smile, you also create serotonin and some dopamine. And so you get these happiness hormones going on, and it actually helps make you smarter and more creative for the next 10 to 15 minutes. Now, there's something called mirror neurons in the neocortex, which is the front part of the head. If I smile at you, Matt, you are naturally inclined to smile back. So I've just given you the gift of a smile. You are now slightly smarter and more creative for a little while, and you're healthier for the next 10 to 15 minutes. So
I
if
was,
I do this 5, 10 times throughout the day to other people, it's going to create this ripple effect. There's basically like these micro transmission nodes of goodness going out into the community.
and
And that's a little thing.
that's something the pandemic took away. I was actually wearing a mask the other day, and there was this little girl who was doing something funny, and I smiled at her, and but she had no idea what was going on behind my mask.
Yeah, she could maybe see your eyes, but
Yeah.
especially with younger kids, they have lost that connection, those subtle clues of reading the body. And so that's something that we can talk about at some other point about how that's going to affect things over an extended period. But it has really cut a lot of the human connection because of the wearing of the masks and the not being able to physically interact with people and touching individuals. And so that's something that there's a really built up demand. It's almost like pressure that's going to continue to try and explode unless it's released in a controlled manner, like with a pressure cooker. It's going to have a bad effect.
What what have you done over the year or two that has increased your excellence in a specific thing by doing?
Well, I ran 2 ultra marathons in the past year and a half. I was training for a third, but I broke my leg. So I'm,
You had run those before or no?
no, I done Ragnar's, stuff like these.
Yeah.
So that's like, doing 20 miles over a day and a half. I stretched them out and did like 25 or 30 because I picked up extra legs. But during the pandemic, my running team said, hey, let's do a backyard ultra. So I ended up doing it, and I swore I would never run another marathon again. So I actually ran 2 in one day. So
Mhm.
from a mathematical point of view, two negatives make a positive. So technically I didn't run a marathon.
Yeah.
And when I finished that and didn't die, I'm like, hey, you know what? With a little training and better nutrition and stuff like this, I could go further. And like during that ultra marathon, the last 10 miles, I actually had to help somebody else emotionally. So all of my energy reserves, my emotional reserves, when I was there, like dying and crying in the last 10 miles, I had to give to somebody else, which is probably the only reason I survived. Because as my mom taught me, if you're having a bad day, go help somebody else. So by giving this person all my energy and focus, I was actually able to finish the marathon, the ultra marathon, not realize how stupid it was that I was doing this. But 6 months later, I ended up doing a 100 kilometer
Mhm.
race. I ended up doing it in 3 hours less and not wanting to die, actually.
This is a standard Wolf Den when I don't know what we're going to talk about, and then you say something, and it moves me to show and tell. This is uh,
Woohoo! We're in kindergarten.
this is our same here endurance team. My brother runs Ironman, and he has started a same here endurance team to champion for mental health with his endurance races. So
Awesome.
same here is a great
Hook
organization
me
that
up with your brother. Hook me up with your brother, please.
have you run an Ironman before?
I have not run an Ironman because I do not bike well. but
Yeah,
I run and swim. In fact, I did it over the weekend, and it's one of those things that I'm going to do in my life. I swore I would do my first marathon before I turned 30. I did it a couple of weeks beforehand. So doing a triathlon is on that list of things that I will accomplish.
yeah. I don't run an Ironman because I'm smart enough not to put my body through that. Not because I can't do it. Uh,
Hey,
but
the first person to run a marathon died.
yeah, I can't. I didn't know that. I can't. I'm terrible with endurance. I'm in basketball shape. I can play basketball for 3 hours.
You sprint. You sprint.
I can't even sprint. I'm telling you, I can't even run a 5K. It's
No,
embarrassing.
you run up and down the court.
Oh yeah, that I sprint. But you have time to pause, and hey, if I pause here, I'm probably okay. It's interesting. Um,
Hey,
the
Matt, what's your birthday?
5'2".
5'2". Okay. So we're going to look up your birth date in the book to give a real world example. Okay. So the quote for that day is from William Butler Yeats, one of my favorite poets. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. Oh, that's appropriate for you. Okay, so here's a little bit of the discussion. Your brain is never full, even if it might feel overloaded sitting through a quantum mechanics class. Your brain is not your iPhone, whose memory is filled with 2,047 pictures of your cat Tuna, so you delete your banking app to still be functional. And we go through and we talk about stuff like that. And so this is actually where I talk about people not reading and not learning. So it's sort of funny. And then the action item, start reading a book today.
Start reading a book.
So see, it's on your birthday. You got to do it, man.
I have. I'm going to give another plug here, if I could find it. Here we go. We're going to plug a book, Fans First by Jesse Cole of the Savannah Bananas. And I'm going to read this book. I'm
The
excited about it.
Savannah Bananas? What a cool name for a
You
team.
don't know who the Savannah Bananas are? Look them up. We did a special VIP meet and greet ticket for them. But the minor league baseball team in Georgia, and they are the Walt Disney Harlem Globetrotters of minor league baseball. It's an experience. Jesse and his team are marketing experts, customer service experts, fan first. So I'm going to read this book, Fans First by Jesse Cole, and I'm going to do it.
Do they reference Bill Veek in there at any point?
Probably does. I haven't read it yet. I just got it.
Bring in a midget.
Yeah. They do have a guy. I mean, it's incredible what they come up with. And it's just one of the things I admire about them is just their ability to try and not worry about failure. Now, I don't think you have to fail to succeed, but I think you can't be afraid to fail.
Exactly. You have to be willing to fail. And if you're lucky enough to not fail, then you don't have the scars
Yeah.
that typically go with it. But you have to have the mindset that you are willing to do so.
Is
Because if not, then you're missing out on the potential upside returns. In finance, it's called alpha, the differential return that you bring to the table. So if you're just going to do what everybody else does, guess what? You're going to end up where everybody else is. And that might not be bad. That might be okay for you if that's the way that your mental makeup is. But for those of us who are really high in openness, on the big five personality traits, we are risk takers. We want to experiment. We want to see. And as I said earlier, it's not fatal. It's fixable. So, okay, you know what? So I lost some money. Oh, you know what? I got, punched in the face. Oh, the pretty girl said no. Oh, I lost that race. Oh, that didn't work out. You know what? For the times that it does, it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean it's a numbers game in a sense, right? If you throw enough darts at the board, I mean there's all these cliches, and some of them are legitimate, and some of them are like, all right, well you're kind of trying to game. Like if I ask a million people, I might get one person to say yes, and that could be in a scam type of situation where you and I were talking before about someone want to counterfeit. So
Yep.
there's good and bad. Like everything, there's good and bad to it, but it's like
But the other thing is, sales is this game I was taught early on. So I knew that for every 10 introductions that I got, on average, one person would become a client out of that. So I knew to hit my goals, I needed to get 25 to 28 introductions per week. So 5 to 6 per day. And it didn't matter if somebody somebody said no or yes on their day, I trust in the process. That you're a 300 hitter, and yes, you go up with every at bat, every pitch, trying to do your best. But if you occasionally strike out or you hit the ball hard and you hit it right at somebody, you're not worried because you trust the process and you know you're doing the right things.
Process.
So I had somewhere I was trying something in business, and I'm like, all right, I need to reach out to 25 new potential individuals every single week to get 5 to 7 appointments out of this. Yesterday, I did my 25 reach outs, and I didn't care if I reached somebody that particular day or not. I think it went to voicemail or into, I'd hear back eventually, because I understand if I do X, then I will end up with Y plus or minus. So if you are continue to do this, and the thing is that the sales cycle or the might be weird, so give start coming to fruition. I grew up on a farm, so I knew you plant in the spring, you can harvest in the fall. So this is the patience that unfortunately has been squeezed out by convenience with a lot of people, that they don't understand. I need to act every day for 30 days and then I'll start seeing results. That's what going to the gym is about. That's what dieting is about. That's what writing, you write every single day is about. Anything that's great takes persistent effort. And that is one of the things that I try and teach people around the mindset of excellence, is that whatever that you have to do, whether it's make 10 dials or write for 15 minutes every single day, or practice the scales on your instrument that you're working on. If you do what you're supposed to every single day, trust the process, and over time, you will see the results. And that's how you get.
But excellence does not equal success, right? I mean, you can strive to be excellent, you can strive to be better, and you could still have all these failings. You could have,
Yeah, I've never made any money off of being a martial artist.
yeah.
So I've
But
never
it's
made
just
any
like,
money being a martial artist.
I think it's more about being bettering yourself as a person and sort of doing the right thing, which now somehow is in question. Certain things that we used to agree, everyone used to
Or
agree was
it gives you, yeah, it makes you better. You become a better person by overcoming obstacles and doing difficult things, because it builds resilience and vision and work ethic and all that. But for example, as a martial artist, I still do every single morning the same basic punches that I learned almost 40 years ago. Horse stance starter punch, I do it with 100 punches each hand every day minimum. Over my life, I've thrown over 10 million punches. I don't need to think about it, but it's that resilient, it's doing those things. So I have a saying, I wear my black belt on my soul. And it's that ability to focus on doing the little things, to grind through things that I don't necessarily want to do, to uh, work towards getting better, even when it's difficult, even when you want to give up, even when you're tired or in pain or whatever. But that's a mindset that you can then apply into other areas. So excellence is an attitude. The Greeks had a term, arete, which is like virtue or excellence in all things. And so Admiral McCracken talked about this when he did his commencement speech. I think it was in Austin, or maybe it was Rice. Please don't get upset at me, people from Texas. But you make your bed every single morning, and that gives you the carry forward. They would
makes their bed in the
abuse
morning.
you in the SEALs, but you learned how to take it. You learned to do things successfully in one area, or to have the discipline or the vision, and it carries over into other components of your life. And so people who go to the gym on a regular basis in their teens and 20s and 30s, guess what? They're still going to have the physical effects of that. That's going to help them in their 50s and 60s and 70s. If they continue to train in a martial art or running or something else that pushes them, they're going to have that ability to push on through when it comes to work, or when it comes to being a special needs parent or a relationship with somebody else. Being able to do the difficult things, to face your fears, makes you better in all ways.
If we have a finite amount of time, aren't we wasting it by making our bed?
Oh, I hate making my bed, and I always did. My mom said that's why I'd never be in the military. So I do it because I hate it. Now, here's the thing: we all have the 86,400 seconds per day. Making your bed is probably going to take 60 seconds. The question is that wasted? Is it spent or is it invested? Now, when I'm making my bed, I'm also listening to a podcast or an audio book. So I'm double dipping. So that's bonus 60 seconds to me. So do something else that's productive. I mean, tell your significant other how beautiful they are. Help them out and get some points that you can cash in as down the road by making the bed. Little things like that are investments, not wasting.
Yeah. It's and it might give you a feeling. It might give you a feeling that's different than giving me a feeling like getting dressed up for the day. I was asked, did you wear this suit for me, or is that what you were going to wear today, regardless?
I was wearing it regardless because this is my uniform. I mean, I've got no boss telling me that I have to wear a suit and tie. I
Yeah,
could be sitting here in a Hawaiian shirt and blue jeans and just as comfortable.
that's
But
next Friday is
it's like
Hawaiian shirt
what
day, Joe.
Joe DiMaggio said. The reason why he played so hard every single time is because there was somebody out in that stand, some kid, that was the only time they were going to see Joe DiMaggio.
Yeah,
I This is my uniform still from my earliest days in finance. I put on the tie, I put on a jacket, and I'm in go mode and I'm going to perform and I'm going to give my absolute best. Same way as when I walk into a dojang, I have my black belt on. Okay. When I'm training on my own, I'm wearing, sweatpants or what have you. It doesn't matter. But the instant that I walk into a place where I'm influencing or somebody else can see me, then I am in show mode because I have a responsibility to the other people as opposed to me.
yeah,
Because yeah, it'd be great to be sitting here, with the COVID tuxedo on with shorts on the bottom and this on top, but I'm not going to do it. I didn't grow an apocalypse beard. I did not give up on my standards in any way, shape, or form during that. I'm not going to. And it is having those internal standards, that professional pride that we talked about, that allows people to be successful. Now I've got a female friend who's like, dude, you should not wear the tie. You look really good with it. And so like when I hang out with her and stuff like that, yeah, I'm not wearing the tie. I'll just wear the jacket and the shirt. But I am here to represent to your listeners, to bring my absolute best. And so this is part of the psychology, like playing Princes of the Universe before getting on this call. So that I was mentally in the mode, like doing the Superman pose, like doing my research, all these things so that I can deliver because that is my obligation to other people that I work with. And I wish more people would have that attitude of I am here to give my absolute best to others. And that's how I'm taking care of long range.
here
I'll get off my soapbox now.
I have one thing to say to that.
Oh, and remember, next Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day. So, if you want to, go ahead and wear a Hawaiian shirt and jeans.
Yeah, so next Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day. You do have to be comfortable in what you're wearing, though, because if you're uncomfortable in what you're wearing, it throws you off of your game in a way for certain things.
Right. And that's part of the thing. I started wearing the suit and tie every single day when I was in my early 20s. And by like the end of the day, I was taking the tie off. I'm like, I hate this. And by the way, when I'm done with all of my conversations and all that, I'm getting out of the monkey suit.
Yeah,
But as I said, I have an obligation to others. If people focus more on uh, the economic altruism, the capitalistic karma, the putting others before themselves, then we would have a much better society overall because I don't need to win every single thing at the poker table. I don't need to squeeze every dime out of a potential client. I don't need to win ultimately because in every single capacity because that's a finite game mentality as opposed to an infinite game mentality. And so if you focus on giving your best every single time and delivering more value than you take every single interaction, you're going to build a reputation for excellence. People are going to want to be around you. You're going to get more opportunities long range. Does it hurt over any one particular interaction? Potentially, yes. Okay, we can always strike out in any particular at bat. But if you have this attitude overall, you're going to create more value in the community, and it will reflect back on you in ways that you don't understand today. And you might never actually understand. But you know what? Eventually at my wake, when I'm 105 years old and people are there pounding whiskey and cracking jokes like the good Irish do, you know what? It's going to come out at some point like that.
Do you want to live to 105? I have no desire.
I am going to win a race in the age 100 plus division. And I have to do that because I need to outlast everybody because I'm not fast. I look like a shuffling pirate or like, John Wayne just getting off of the horse. I am not a gazelle. I am not a deer. I'm not elegant in terms of my fleet-footedness in any way, shape, or form. So I just need to outlast everybody.
I got it.
So I've been saying for years I'm going to live to 100. I'm leveling up to 50 later this year, so I'm only halfway there. And a lot of the choices I'm making now are so that I can still be a productive member of society
Right, but
intellectually.
again, but there's stuff out of your control. You could be 100 years old, very mentally sound, and you might need to operate in a wheelchair.
Yeah, I could get hit by the bus tomorrow. The
I get
aliens could land.
I get that. I'm just saying, do you want to live to be 100 if you can't run that race?
I'm going to do everything possible to be able to run that race.
Okay.
And
I
you
get
know
it.
what?
I get it.
If I get to 98 years old and I have to change the plan, oh well. It's
Yeah.
better to have a plan that you're working on and a vision to achieve than to just have nothing.
I agree with that. I just say, me personally, there's an age that if I can't do this or do that.
Well, 3 of my great aunts lived to within 4 months of their 100th birthdays.
Really,
And they were all good mentally and physically until they were like 98 years old.
great. That's great. You mentioned Ironman's on the bucket list. Give me another bucket list item in your life.
Another bucket list item is to watch the Yankees win the World Series at Yankee Stadium.
Okay. And give me a place you've never been in the world that you'd like to get to.
Ireland. I have yet to go to Ireland.
I've been there. I'd love to go back. I was at the cliffs of Moher.
Oh,
But it's a long story. The short version is we were on a tour, didn't get to control when we come and go. We were there. It was foggy. You couldn't see anything. And as we're driving in the bus away, looking back, everything disappeared.
Yep.
But go to Ireland. It's one of my favorite
I'm
places
going to. So
ever
one
been.
of my best friends growing up gave me this, and yes, this is a chunk of stone from the same quarry where the Blarney Stone came from. I have never kissed it. I never will because that's where my family's from. And I know what my family does to it.
I kissed the Blarney Stone. I did that, and I got this leprechaun in Ireland.
Sweet. See, I don't need to kiss it because it's genetic for me. So
I did, as disgusting as it is, but I did it.
I've done enough disgusting things in my life, which we'll talk about over a beer with no cameras.
Yeah,
going.
no cameras on. Show us the book again. We're everyday/excellence.com. Follow him on Twitter at EDE with Joe. Everyday Excellence, a daily guide to growing. Looks like a great book. It's so simple, right? It's simple things but yet we need to be told over and over again. It's just we don't do it. And
I actually was meeting with the former head of psychiatry from one of the big med centers a couple of weeks ago, and she's been reading the book, and she's like, there is so much information and psychology and biology that you have simplified down here and packed into this to make it so that a lay individual, that a high school student or a homemaker or a CEO can read this and start taking the little steps to make themselves that much better.
It's great advice. And listen to the sunscreen song. It's a lot of good advice there. Two quick things. I not sure if this counts, but I saw the Yankees lose a World Series to the Marlins in person. That was a fun thing for me, being from New Jersey and living in Florida now. And the last question we always ask our guests: you can spend a day with anyone in the world. They have to be alive, and you can't be related to them. What would you do? Who would you pick, and what would you guys do?
Okay, there's one person who I'm not allowed to talk about, so we're going to exclude that person. This is
Brent, big supporter of the show, says fishing with George W. I tell him he's invited to come on the show, and the only chance you get to get on the list for us is if you join the show. So if he comes on the show, he'll know what the question is, he'll know what the answer is, and yes, we are going to do some outreach at some point, and as we get big enough, we can make any of this happen.
I think that I would like to spend a day just talking with Dr. Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
And because having read his books and done some research and my own stuff, I think that we could literally spend 15 hours just talking and taking notes and learning new things.
Is there any worry about the people you meet that you put up on the pedestal? Heroes are not the people you thought they were. Like we kind of talk, they don't have to be bad, but just not the people you thought they were.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because, like, I loved John Maxwell's books for years. Leadership speaker, former preacher, and when I actually saw him speak live for the first time, it was he was tired. He was not nearly as persuasive as the clips that I'd seen or the powerful voice that he had in his book. So that was a disappointment in a lot of ways. But then a couple of years ago, I got a chance to meet Warren Moon, big Vikings fan, and I shook his hand, and Pops looked like he could still throw it around. I'm like, as a Vikings fan, thank you. And he, broke my heart. He's like, if I had one more year there, we would have won the Super Bowl. I'm like, oh.
We did. I was just at the Mike Ditka Gridiron Greats Hall of Fame, and we're going to a number of events at the Hall of Fame in the Super Bowl next year. And Warren is involved in some of these events, so I think I'm going to get a chance to meet him soon. But we'll find out.
He's one of the people who I've met, and he was as advertised and more.
Well, that is good to hear because and not everyone can be the best people and nice and all of that. So it's good to hear. Show us the book one last time. Everyday Excellence, Joe Templin, EDE with Joe. Check it out and let us know what you think. And looking forward to chatting with you down the line, Joe.
Matt, thank you. Be excellent and grow today.